Right, Waihi Dam.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, I think I've got the next two. We'll just, Wayne's going to come and work through some stuff with me. We've got to do the slideshow first, the PowerPoint.
No, it's a video.
The video,
The other one's
PowerPoint.
she had it right first, yeah.
Are you going to do that first?
Do that first. Yeah, and then we'll do the video second. Yeah. So we've got a few background slides. We thought it would be helpful to provide some, I guess, an information update, including just a little bit about where this is at and what's happened to date, and then perhaps some of the slides and pictures we can just help you in terms of understanding what the issues are, and then a quick sort of view on what Eastland Group are doing moving forward. So if you want to start off, Wayne, and I'll just jump in as well.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. There's two parts to this. There's well, first of all, I think everybody will appreciate there's no argument here. This is an horrendous environmental incident. What I'm going to talk about here are two things. One is what has happened, and part of that will be pure fact. Some of that will be supposition. Some of that will be things that have been told to us. But the second part is the investigation of what actually happened, and so all those things that we talk about in the first part will actually be, we will determine. So please appreciate that part of the overall incident in terms of the investigation. I won't be free to discuss with you too much, because it's a process which is happening, and it may very well result in enforcement action. So we're going to be very careful how we deal with that. So if we can first start, the Waihi Dam, as you can see there on the map, is where it's located. On the road, or just off the road between Wairoa and Waikaremoana. The dam was built in the early 1980s. Thank you. The early 1980s. I understand it was sometime in the 90s it was taken over by the Eastland Group. Now the Eastland Group, if you don't know, is a reasonably large organisation. A bit of context: they own the Gisborne port, and they own the Gisborne airport, and this dam is part of their portfolio. It's part of power generation and selling power. You can just there's a Google Earth shot of it there. You can see that the snake in the top middle there, that's essentially the reservoir, and immediately below that is the dam, and you can see the Waihi stream meandering down. I think it's about 150 metres drop, I think, down to the Waihi stream in the bottom left. These are the gates that we're talking about on the dam. There's three gates there, and that's at the time of construction. These gates are automatic, and they open and shut. Well, they usually open and shut automatically to regulate the flow. What happened was in September of last year, there was a large storm event above the catchment. Some people were saying it was worse than Cyclone Bowler. To be determined, but it was a significant event, and as a result there was severe flooding, a lot of slips into the river, a lot of logs and debris travelled down the river and through the dam. Now, as a result, or during that event, the dam was damaged, and what happened was one of the gates, which you see there will be the one on the extreme left-hand side, was damaged, and the other two were shut or blocked with silt. What happened at that point was in November, the beginning or middle of November, the Eastern Group informed us that the council that the gates were damaged, and they were going to do some repair work on it, which they did. And exactly what they did then is, as part of the investigation, but in general terms, what they did, they managed to open one of those gates. That's the gate on the left-hand side, and it remained open. In the 18th of December, which was a month and a half after they started work on fixing the gate, it was reported to one of our council people in Wairoa that the Waihi River and the Waihi River were full of silt and quite muddy, and that was on a Friday. And over that weekend, our staff member went out and determined that the silt was actually coming from the Waihi Dam. That was the first time that we were aware as a council that silt had been discharged through the dam. We went up there, or we were informed of that the compliance team and my team were informed of that on the Monday. That's the Monday the week before Christmas, and we immediately went up there and determined that was the issue. If you have been following the press releases and I think the updates that we have given to councillors, the story is no different. We issued an abatement notice to the Eastern Group telling them to shut that one remaining gate, because we determined that would stop the silt and hence prevent more silt from going downstream. They came back to us and said we would not want to do that because we believe there's a safety issue if we did shut that gate, and there could be damage to life and property. Now that was on Christmas Eve. At that point we had a discussion here with our engineers and determined, well, there may or there may not be some credence to what they say, but of course the risks of them of course closing the dam and then it blowing was a risk that we could not take, and we weren't in a position then to actually get any independent engineering assessment as to whether that was true or not. So essentially the gates remained open over the Christmas break. What Eastland did tell us they would do, and in fact it was part of our abatement notice, was that they would not do any more work on that dam until they had got an independent engineer's report, and they had run that past us, and they would not do anything until we gave it the go-ahead, and they agreed to that. So after the New Year's break, it would be fair to say Eastland had some difficulty in obtaining an engineer, and essentially we then made an immediate assessment. Well, we did get some more engineering advice of our own, which determined that no, there is no significant risk if the gate was shut. So we then reissued the abatement notice saying shut the gate. So Eastland then said, yes, we will do that, but we just want to point out that we may not be able to shut it completely because of the amount of silt, but we will shut the gate. So they attempted to shut the gate, but they were unable to. So the gate still remains open. They were unable to shut the gate because the gate was damaged to an extent that it would not shut. So sorry, you want to jump in?
Well, I was just going to add, just to give you some context for the photo, that so this is the view downstream looking up at what they call the sluice gates, and the sluice gates are designed to operate automatically, so they're automated, so there's no person on site, and they're triggered by inflows to the reservoir from upstream and lake level, with the intent being that there is an allowance for some water to go over the top of the dam, but they don't want a large volume of water over the top of the dam, otherwise there's a risk of failure of the structure. So at some points the system triggers opening of the gates to drop the water levels and kind of balance off the inflows and outflows. The unfortunate thing is that the design of these sluice gates doesn't help the group at the moment, because as Wayne explained, the one in the middle and the one on the right, are effectively buried upstream in a large volume of sediment, and the one on the left is closed. And when we say it's not closed, it's partly closed. The reason it won't close is that what they call the stilling basin, which is the concrete area in behind the gates, is effectively full of silt, and so the arms of the gate are resting on silt. So the group advise us that there's nothing holding the gate up other than the sediment in the stilling basin, but it's not able to close fully and seal on the concrete lip down the bottom. So they've opened it to effect their repairs, and as a result of that, and potentially from the storm event, it's ended up coming up and not being able to go back down because it's sitting on this large volume of silt.
That'll become a little more evident when we show some of the following photos. So where we are today, the Eastland have employed their independent engineer. They supplied an interim engineering report to us yesterday, which is still incomplete, where they have put forward their plans for, number one, ceasing the discharge of silt down the river, and secondly to fix the dam and make it operable again. Part of that plan commenced today, which was they are building essentially a smaller dam just at the confluence of the Waihi stream, just upstream from the confluence with the Waihi River, which will not stop the discharge of sediment into the river, but it will certainly cut down on it, and they will also be collecting sediment from there and removing it. This is all while the repair of the dam takes place. That plan may be modified. We will see once we have conducted our, our independent assessment of the engineer's plan, which, as I say, we've not got the final plan. So at this point, we'll just go through a couple of the slides. There you can see that the dam, looking upstream. In the middle at the bottom, you can see that's essentially a bird's eye view of that previous slide we saw when the gates were constructed. Above the dam, you can see where normally during winter that is full of water, the reservoir, and it looks like a moonscape. That's a little bit further north, but still within the reservoir. And looking downstream here, you'll see the dam on the bottom right, the road bridge immediately in front of it, and then the river heads off towards a waterfall. That's the further downstream. You can really see it's like wet cement. Here, this is where it meets the Waihi River, and you can see here the Waihi River in its clean state on the right-hand side, and you can see all the crap coming down the Waihi stream there and around the edge. And when we actually see the video, you'll see what it really looks like.
A comment there. The main channel goes sort of towards the top of the screen. That's now filled with silt, and it's actually the only channel is coming out directly into that big pool of clear water. So the rest of it's filled up with silt.
And you might just want to comment that the power station is just sort of at the
Just
bottom
out of
the
sight.
river.
Yeah, you'll see the power station in a second. Yeah,
Okay.
the power station is right there too. So it's you see there now. There's the power station. Of course, it's the building in the middle. The right-hand side is the Waihi stream, and left-hand is the Waihi. You see the red strip. That is where the Gabion wall or dam is being constructed today. And they can actually get access to that, of course, down from the road.
Did you explain
big
that?
machines in there.
Sorry?
Did you explain what that is?
No, I haven't. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so the red line is an area that indicates effectively the creation of another stilling basin. So the independent engineer's report said, if practicable, get some gabion baskets built, line it with textile cloth in between, put them in to dam the Waihi stream to trap as much sediment as possible upstream of it and then physically remove it. So the idea is to try and, while the discharge from the dam is uncontrolled, is to try and regain some control of it down here before it joins the Waihi. So effectively trap it before it enters the mainstream. That work is underway today, and we don't know how effective it will be. So time will tell.
And the reason they're doing it down there is you can get a truck and trailer and 14-ton digger and everything in there to physically remove the sediment. Unfortunately, up by the bridge and up the top, the access is incredibly limited. I mean, it would be ideal to try and trap it up closer to the dam, but unfortunately that's the only place in the kilometre or so of that Waihi stream below the dam that you could actually get in with a big machine and do the work.
Is the sediment wet or dry?
wet.
Wet.
Is there any sense of how much more silt there is to come through?
We've had our manager science, Stephen Swavy's got a background in fluvial geomorphology, so he's gone and done some assessments of what's up there, what's above the dam and what's below it and what's likely to come through. And I haven't caught up with them in terms of what the volumes are, but it's significant. It's very significant.
Yeah.
Oh, worse than that. I mean, you've still got what sits up in the catchment.
Yeah.
It's a huge catchment, huge catchment. Thousands of hectares.
It's an absolute mess.
So I don't think the video is going to work because it didn't work last time.
Can I just ask a quick question? When you said about the abatement notice, when was the abatement notice first issued?
24th of December.
December, and you finally issued the abatement notice when?
No, that was abatement notice was issued on the 24th of December. You're talking about the second one?
Yeah.
The second one, I think the 6th or 7th of January.
So this is just giving you an appreciation of just, there's a reasonable volume of water still coming out of the reservoir, probably around half a cubic. There's a lot of sediment has come through and has moved right through the Waihi stream. So it just gives you an appreciation of what's coming out of the system. The pool immediately below the dam evidently used to be deep. You can now walk across it. Well, if you chose to, if you wanted to risk your life. So that's the falls just immediately above the confluence of the Waihi River, and then coming further down towards the Waihi River. The closest I've seen to this is the Ruapehu eruption in 1995. This is the sort of material that was coming out a lot of the Ruapehu tributaries. It looks like lahar material. So here it's joining the Waihi, and you can see it's mixing. So as part of this work, we've had fish ecologists, bug ecologists, sediment experts, people in there collecting some baseline information as well, just to get an understanding of what is the impact of this. So that's the Waihi River further downstream.
So not far from that last shot there's a major farm livestock water supply which has been affected. But to put it in context, even when their pumps were clogging up, they still didn't make the connection that it was the dam that was doing the issue. So there was a vacuum of information earlier on, which would have been very helpful. I mean, if we'd been alerted straight away, in hindsight, it's a great thing. But even those people that have been directly affected, took them a month to make that connection to that dam, because there's so many other tributaries that come in that quite often the river runs dirty. There'll be rain in one area and not in another, thunderstorms, those sorts of things. So, but anyway.
So going forward, with our discussions with Eastland yesterday and the engineer, I suppose that the draft plan they've put to us, they are saying if they are allowed to do that, they would think 3 weeks before they could shut the gate. We will determine probably, well, as soon as we get their final report, because they've asked for some more information, we're hoping we'll get that tomorrow, and we'll be able to give them an answer reasonably quickly as to as to whether they can, or what they can do, or whether they can go ahead with that plan or not. But so there's still going to be a few weeks of pain.
So if the gates, once the gates are closed, if there's kilometers of silt still behind the gates, how long does it take before it just fills up the reservoir? What actually will happen?
Well, see, that's going to be the what we've asked for in the engineer's plan as to how they're going to handle the silt. So there are a couple of options there. So
The other sort of, if you like, complication or tension in this is that the operation of the dam comes under some safety requirements, because it's obviously a large structure and captures a lot of water, and if it fails, there's risks downstream. So part of the operation of the dam requires at least 2 of the 3 sluice gates to be operating or functioning properly, to allow them to open the dam and take the pressure off if there's if we do get a cyclone this season, and it is sort of getting towards the time of year we might get one, and the thing fills up and it creates a problem, and they haven't got control of the dam, i.e. they're not able to manage the sluice gates, that also creates some risk. So there's obviously an environmental impact we've just looked at, but there's also a potential impact on people and property if the result of the dam not operating properly. So what our focus is on getting the discharge stopped as soon as physically practicable, which is effectively closing the gate. And their dual focus is also, so they want to do that as well, but they're also focused on getting control back of the dam, because, as I say, 2 of the 3 gates at the moment won't open because they're buried in sediment. So that's a problem for them. So they have to deal with the immediacy of what's above it, as well as getting the thing closed that won't close at the moment.
So
But
if
surely-
they close that gate, that stops the sediment from
Correct.
releasing downstream. Does that mean there'll be no water flow?
Yes.
So what are the consequences of no water flow, and how many kilometres of river would be affected by that?
It's not very far, and as you might appreciate, the system from the dam to the Waihi confluence is basically just full of sediment now.
So it's buggered anyway.
There's significant impacts on that. Whatever was there now is unlikely to be there. What was there previous is now unlikely to be there. So yes, I think from memory, Wayne, there is a residual flow requirement out of the dam. We probably won't be too concerned about that. We're more interested in stopping the discharge of sediment and the corresponding
So
impact.
you
Isn't the issue-
satisfied that the 3 weeks that this is going to take, there's no alternatives, that's
That's
the best option available?
That's the idea of the bunds downstream, to try and mitigate and capture as much as practicable before it gets to the Waihi. And that's the limits of the engineering advice so far, because the challenges are in that section of the Waihi stream, it's deeply incised, it's narrow, access is problematic, so you only have limited options to physically get in and put some things in place, and there is an enormous volume of sediment coming out, so you couldn't just put in some filter cloth on some waratahs, for example, because it would last literally minutes before it was blown out. So it needs to be corresponding to the scale of the problem they've got. Yeah.
But aren't we looking at the issue the wrong way round? Our interest isn't in the dam, our interest is in stopping the sediment.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I get that, but we seem to be focused on allowing them to get control of the dam and the dram and their health and safety. That's their problem.
No,
Because what we should have said to them right at the start, the sediment has to be stopped immediately.
and we have. So
But
just
hang on, it hasn't been.
if I haven't made that clear, that's absolutely what we've said to them. Our priority for them, the safe operation of the dam is not our issue. You are correct. We've said to them they must stop the discharge of the dam, and so that's the purpose of the abatement notice, is get the gate closed. How they deal with their operational requirements beyond that are their concern to work out, and may well require further resource consents or our involvement, but we are absolutely focused on stopping the discharge of sediment from the dam by shutting that gate.
But with respect, when you say the objective is to get the gate closed, you're coming back onto their domain, which is about the
No,
dam.
No, because
But
Sorry.
you are. But what we should have said to them is that There are easy ways to stop this, and one is to build, as you've said, what some people call a cofferdam or a thing like that. Could have been done very quickly.
So,
And as long as you've got a barrier that slows the water down sufficiently so the sediment drops, we've got no problem. How it gets done is immaterial to us. And I don't accept that the engineering above the dam is impossible. It's difficult, it would take some big gear, but it's doable. It's just that they said it was difficult, and so we all fell off.
so just to respond to that, so the challenge here is that there wasn't specialist dam engineering advice to start with to help advise on what the options were. The immediate and simple way of stopping the discharge of sediment from the dam is to shut the gate. The other options that the engineer provided were, or the engineers have provided, were the construction of these cofferdams. And that, although they're being built today, the planning and preparation for that began some time ago. So resources mobilised, gear ordered. So Eastland had kind of had that interim discussion when they had their engineer on site. He said, look, this is probably going to be an option you want to pursue. They started preparing for that. We got ready. We had resource consents issued for them to allow them to do that as soon as practicable. They were then frustrated with the availability of contractors and gear to do the work. People weren't prepared to just drop sticks and turn up and do it for them. And it took a while to mobilise that. But we absolutely said, in the long game is complete stop of the discharge of sediment. In the short term, what can we do to mitigate it as best as practicable? Hence the construction of the cofferdams. But it's just the scale and size of the issue meant that's what the engineers were saying we could do.
Chair, I
They
agree.
could do.
Our first priority is to stop the silt going into our river. It's not Eastland's river, it's our river. And that's the first thing. The second, once we've done that, and I don't know whether it'll be fast or slow, that just seems a long time and a lot of excuses, really, watching all this happen. But Eastland's knew when they opened that gate that all that silt was going to come wandering through, you know, and ruin our river. They knew. Someone in their organisation knew, their engineers. And
I think at this point, I can tell you right now, we cannot comment on that because that is part of the investigation. And
no, I'm not asking you to comment. I'm commenting. I went up and had a look. No, we're not. This is not a question. They knew. And those directors who we've just looked up there, they're responsible for this poor decision making. And that's why I've asked the questions. What was their silt mitigation policy? Because I've got a young German staying with me. His dad was a dam engineer. And in Germany, all the dams all have silt. Silt's coming down. It's just an excuse for them to say a whole lot came all at once. They're running a business here. They know that. I was a fruit grower. I knew it was going to rain. So I have to mitigate the rain. I knew it was going to rain 10 inches sometime. Have to make sure the drainage is right. They knew. And if they didn't know, then they're incompetent. But they knew. And this, I want to know, what was their silt mitigation? What were they doing to manage the silt, which was always going to build up behind in that dam? Now, I know that's not your problem. You're looking at me like, it's not your problem. Our challenge is, as quickly as possible, shut that gate, stop that silt running to our stream. It's not. I'm sick of Gisborne putting problems on, whether it's their forestry problems or now it's their dam problems. And I think it's time we held them accountable for the problems they're bringing to our area. So that's my final statement on that.
Very well said. And as has been alluded to, we're in a process of holding them accountable. But in the meantime, it hasn't stopped the jolly silt.
Can I respond? I had a slightly different perspective from Rex. A lot of my friends are gold diggers on the west coast. They make sure there is no. They make sure there is no silt goes down the river. The first thing they do is put in little dams and weirs to make sure there's no silt, and they're almost in fear of the local regional council because if the council turns up the shutdown and the silt going down, it's shut down immediately. These are gold diggers. They're not known for their environmental concerns over 100 years. That's what they do. And if they don't have it done right, the council goes in, fixes it and sends them the bill. That's what they do. Really tough. Now, I just think when it came up to this, the answer was really clear what had to be done. And I think we hung off. I would have personally, not just holding the directors to account, said that gets fixed and we're sending the bill. We have stood around and waited. I think we've let this thing slide on far too long. And if there's one lesson we need to learn from this, is that when something like this happens again, we shouldn't have to wait for someone to tell us that there's all this stuff going to the river or any of these things. We should require them, when they say we're doing some work on anything like that around the river, they must give us daily reports on what they're doing and what the consequences are. And they must report if there's any issues. See, we have never had that before. We've never had this problem before, but let's learn from it. Let's make them report to us. We shouldn't have to wait. But I would have said, fix it, send them the bill. They've ruined that river all the way down.
Okay, so a couple of strong views, and I appreciate you gentlemen took some time to go up here and have a look. Any final... I heard about that. Yeah, no. I hear about all those things, as you know. Councillor Scott,
You did
questions?
refer to the fact that the priority was the environmental outcomes, which is under the Resource Management Act. We still actually do have responsibilities under the Building Act, do we not? Even though we have delegated consenting to Waikato. So perhaps you can tell us what our responsibilities under the
So
Building Act
we've
remain.
effectively contracted out the Building Act parts of consenting large dams. Operators of large dams have protocols and procedures and guidelines they have to operate to. And like I say, one of Eastland's concerns, and I take the point that it's their concern, is getting control of the dam, is being able to safely operate it. So that's something that they're focused on as part of their overall response. I'll reiterate that our priority is stopping the discharge by either through some immediate mitigation as well as the longer term shutting the gate, and then gives us the ability to more sensibly manage the response, as in, sorry, not for us, for Eastland to more sensibly manage their response to deal with their issue upstream of the dam.
Look, if there's no more questions, I think we should move this report. I'm happy to move it, actually, to move along, because we are running out of time, and we have another presenter at the end of the day who will be gone at 5:15, so we need to move on. So I'm happy to move that we accept this report. We have someone happy to second that. Yeah, happy to, Councillor Pipe. Just one comment from me. I've been totally frustrated by the lack of urgency by Eastland. It's been bloody hopeless. My summer holidays have been spent traipsing up and down that road, feeling, you haven't got a chance of fixing anything because it's their problem. I keep telling people it's their problem. It's been quite good to reconnect with some of the locals on that road. I went into the first house expecting to be hung. It was all our problem, and the farmer at about 2 o'clock said, we better have a beer. So he wasn't that angry in the early exchanges anyway. I did decline, I might add. And my old mate, Jean Martin, who we've locked horns for 10 or 15 years, made me fresh scones when I went to see her, so that wasn't too bad either. But they are totally frustrated, the guys up that road, the farmers up that road. They wait all year to make the most out of one of the best rivers in the country, and the jolly thing's polluted, basically. So I've got huge sympathy for them, and I'm fast running out of patience and sympathy for Eastland, because in my view there's been a lack of urgency here that is appalling and very apparent, and I think that might come back to haunt them in the next few months, in my view. Seconder, do you wish to speak? We've heard from others. I'll put the motion. All those in favour please say aye. Contrary no. Carried. Could we also perhaps even our next committee meeting a written report would be quite nice next time. Yeah.